Have you ever looked at a photo of yourself and wondered, how did that happen? Not because you hadn't noticed you'd put on weight, but because somehow it had happened so gradually you hadn't even realised how much you had changed. This photo changed my life. When I look at it now, I remember exactly how I felt. Unhealthy, embarrassed, tired, but mostly I remember feeling disappointed in myself. Not because I was overweight, but because I'd stopped looking after myself. At the time, I was 51 years old. I'm 175 centimeters tall. I weighed 98 kilograms. I hated having my photo taken. And whenever anyone would pull out a camera, I'd instinctively hide behind everyone else. If we were at the beach or hotel pool, I'd wrap a towel around myself before walking anywhere. I'd tie a jumper around my waist. I'd wear clothes that hid my stomach instead of clothes I actually liked wearing. I knew people weren't judging me anywhere near as much as I was judging myself. But that didn't really matter, because the person that was judging me the hardest was me. This video isn't about losing weight. It's about getting myself back. Before we go any further, I want to make something really clear. I'm not a doctor. Nothing in this video is medical advice. Everything I'm sharing is simply my personal experience. Over the past 2 years, I've been closely monitored by my GP. I've had regular appointments, quarterly blood tests, and every decision about increasing doses or changing my medication has been made together with my doctor. Everyone responds differently. Your experience could be different from mine. This is simply my story. And unlike some of the stories you might find online, I'm not going to tell you all the good parts. I'm going to tell you everything. The money, the side effects, the things nobody warned me about, the embarrassing bits, the things I wish I'd known before I'd started. Because if I'd watched a video like this 2 years ago, I think it would have helped me a lot. So, to the people that know I'm on Wegovy, the questions were always similar. Are you a diabetic? No. Are you seriously obese? Well, not according to the medical definition. So why did you decide to take Wegovy? The answer was pretty simple. Because I was unhappy. Not just with how I looked, but with how I felt. Everything became harder. Walking upstairs, traveling, getting out of bed. Even simple things like tying my shoelaces became uncomfortable. I'd had less energy than I'd ever had before. I'd look in the mirror and I'd no longer recognize the person staring back at me. I'd remembered what I looked like in my late 40s. Then suddenly, at 51, everything had changed. I wasn't interested in another fad diet. I'd done enough of those. Lose a few kilos, put them back on, repeat. I wanted something that would help me regain control of my eating. So, I spent weeks researching. I watched videos, I read medical articles, I read forums. Then, I booked an appointment to see my GP. We spoke about my weight, my lifestyle, the possible risks, the side effects, whether I was even suitable, and together we decided to start Wegovy. Like everyone else, I started on the smallest dose, because that's just how these medications work. Your body needs time to adjust. Every few weeks, my dosage increased until I was eventually taking the highest dosage in Australia. Initially, the results were incredible. The weight started coming off for the first time in years. I felt like I was finally moving in the right direction. But then, I discovered the first downside. Let's be honest, these medications are expensive. Really expensive. And what surprised me was that as my dose increased, so did the cost. When I started on the lowest dose of Wegovy, I paid around 280 Australian dollars for 4 weeks. Every 4 weeks the dose increased and so did the price. Eventually I reached the highest dose of Wegovy available in Australia. At that point I was paying over $438 every 4 weeks. That's well over $5,000 a year. And because Wegovy isn't currently subsidised on the PBS for people like me, every dollar came out of my own pocket. Now, there's been quite a bit of discussion in Australia about making GLP-1 medications more affordable. The government has been considering PBS support for certain eligible patients with obesity. Now let's talk about the part that nearly made me quit, the side effects. If you spend 5 minutes on social media, you'll hear people talking about vomiting, nausea, fatigue, and headaches. For me, these weren't really a problem. My biggest issue was constipation. And I mean serious constipation. Sometimes I'd go more than a week without going to the toilet. It wasn't uncomfortable. It was painful. Eventually, it became so bad that I had to start using enemas to get things moving again. It's not exactly something that people enjoy talking about on YouTube. But if I'm making a video called The Honest Truth, then I think it's important to tell you exactly what happened. The constipation started on Wegovy, and unfortunately, it's continued while I've been on Mounjaro. It's probably been the most consistent side effect that I've experienced over the last 2 years. If you're considering using these medications, it's definitely something worth discussing with your doctor before you start. The second side effect that hit me hard were the stomach pains. And honestly, the first 6 months were rough. There were days when the cramps were so bad that I'd just sit curled up on the couch waiting for them to pass. Sometimes they were so intense that I'd questioned whether I'd made the right decision. I remember thinking, is losing weight really worth feeling like this? Thankfully, as my body adjusted to the medication, the cramps became less frequent. Today, I still get them occasionally, but nowhere near the severity of those first 6 months. Looking back, I'm glad I pushed through, but there were definitely moments where I wasn't sure I could. One thing I want to stress, this was my experience. I've spoken to people who've had no side effects at all. Others have experienced nausea, some have had diarrhea, and others have experienced fatigue. There's no guarantee that your body will respond the same way mine did. That's why it's so important that you keep in constant contact with your doctor. Throughout this journey, I've been monitored with regular appointments and blood tests every 3 months. If something wasn't right, we discussed it. I wasn't trying to manage this on my own. One thing people don't often talk about is how mentally exhausting the side effects can be. You're excited because you're losing weight. At the same time, you're wondering, how long am I going to feel like this? There were days where I questioned everything. Should I stop? Should I reduce the dose? Should I keep going? They're questions only you and your doctor can answer. For me, I decided to continue. And eventually, my body adapted. But it certainly wasn't an easy first 6 months. The funny thing is, the side effects weren't actually the biggest surprise. The biggest surprise was what happened to food. Because losing my appetite was only half the story. Everyone tells you these medications suppress your appetite, and that's true. But nobody told me that food itself would completely change. Food I'd loved for years just didn't taste as good anymore. KFC, fish and chips, takeaway, pizza. It wasn't that they tasted bad. It was almost like they'd lost their excitement. The enjoyment wasn't there anymore. That's something I never expected. Before Wegovy, I ate because it was breakfast time, lunch time, dinner time. After starting these medications, that routine disappeared. I simply ate when I was hungry. Some days that meant breakfast at 9 o'clock, lunch at 4 o'clock, and sometimes dinner at 9 o'clock at night. Other days, I'd feel hungrier much earlier. There was no pattern anymore. At first, I tried sticking to a normal eating schedule, but eventually I stopped fighting it. I just listened to my body. This is something I'd never heard anyone mention before. Weekly grocery shopping almost became impossible. Normally you'd sit down, plan your meals, buy your groceries, and know what you're going to be eating for the next week. I couldn't do that anymore. I'd walk through the supermarket thinking, what do I feel like eating this week? And honestly, I had absolutely no idea. Because whatever I bought on Sunday, there was a good chance I wouldn't want it by Wednesday. So instead of doing one big shot, I found myself making smaller trips more often because my appetite had become so unpredictable. Restaurants became a completely different experience. I'd order something because it looked amazing, take a few bites, and I'd already be full. I can't tell you how many meals I've left unfinished over the last 2 years. Sometimes I'd ask for a takeaway container, sometimes I'd just leave it. Either way, I definitely spent money on food I simply couldn't eat. And if you've got friends and family who don't understand these medications, it can be difficult to explain. People think you're being picky or dieting or that you're not having fun. The reality is, it's just your body telling you you've had enough. One thing I really want to be honest about, because social media can be incredibly misleading. These medications didn't suddenly turn me into one of those people who meal preps every Sunday, eats kale salads every day, and drinks green smoothies for breakfast. That's just not me. A typical weekday still looks something like this for me. Breakfast is usually a protein shake. Morning tea might be a hot chocolate and cupcake. Lunch is a fruit salad with yogurt and another protein shake. Sometimes another cake in the afternoon. And dinner is usually chicken and pork with vegetables. I'd often still have ice cream afterwards. Am I saying that's the perfect diet? Absolutely not. I'm simply telling you the truth. I wanted this video to reflect what my life actually looks like, not what I think people want to hear. These medications helped me eat less, but they didn't turn me into someone with perfect eating habits. One thing I did make a commitment to though, was protecting my muscle. Because I just didn't want to lose weight, I also wanted to stay strong. And that's where the gym became one of the most important parts of my journey. One thing I was determined not to do was to become a smaller version of an unhealthy person. When people lose weight quickly, they don't just lose fat, they can lose muscle too. And that was something I wanted to avoid. So, from the very beginning, I made myself a promise. No matter how tired I felt, no matter whether I wanted to go or not, I was going to the gym. Almost every day. Some days I trained hard, some days I just showed up. But I showed up because I knew these medications could help me lose weight, but they couldn't build muscle for me. That was still my responsibility. I think there's a misconception that people taking Wegovy or Mounjaro inject themselves, sit on the couch, and magically become skinny. That certainly wasn't my experience. The medication made eating less easier, but it didn't make me fitter. It didn't make me stronger. It didn't improve my cardiovascular health. Those things still required effort. The gym became one of the most important parts of this journey. Not because I wanted six-pack abs, but I wanted to age well. Hell, I'm 53 years old right now. I wanted to stay mobile. I wanted to protect my muscles. I wanted to protect my bones. And most importantly, I wanted to feel strong again. When I first started Wegovy, my only goal was to lose weight as quickly as possible. That's it. I wasn't thinking about muscle, strength, longevity, or healthy aging. I simply wanted the weight gone. Looking back, I think that probably was the wrong mindset. Today, my priorities are completely different. Now, I'm much more interested in maintaining muscle than chasing another kilogram on the scales. The number doesn't matter to me anymore. How I feel does. Another thing people often ask me is, does your doctor just prescribe it and send you on your way? Absolutely not. Throughout this entire journey, I've remained under my GP's care. I've had blood tests every 3 months and regular checkups. We've monitored my health, reviewed progress, discussed side effects, adjusted doses, and made decisions together. That gave me confidence that everything was moving in the right direction. If you're considering these medications, please don't self-diagnose. Work with your doctor. These are powerful medications, and having someone monitor your health makes a huge difference. The biggest lesson that I've learned over the last 2 years is that weight loss isn't actually the destination. It's simply one part of looking after yourself. Today, I feel stronger, I have more energy, I move better, traveling is easier, walking is easier. Even buying clothes has become enjoyable again. For the first time in years, I actually enjoy looking in the mirror. And honestly, that's actually a really nice feeling. After a year, everything changed. Not because I'd started putting weight back on, but because I'd stopped losing it altogether. That's when my doctor suggested something I hadn't really considered: changing medications. After about a year on the highest dose of Wegovy, my weight loss had completely stalled. I wasn't gaining weight, but I wasn't losing it either. I'd reached what most people would commonly call a plateau. At first, I wondered whether I was doing something wrong. Maybe I wasn't exercising enough. Maybe I was eating too much. Maybe my body had just simply adapted. When I spoke to the doctor, he wasn't surprised at all. He explained that this could happen. So together we discussed my options. And that's when he suggested that I move on to Mounjaro. To be honest, I was nervous. I'd already spent a year on Wegovy, and I knew how my body reacted to that. Starting a new medication felt like I was going back to square one. But I trusted my doctor, and so we decided to make the switch. Was it worth it? For me, yes. Within 6 months, I'd lost another 5 kilograms. Those were the last 5 kilos I'd been trying to lose for over a year. And that finally brought me to my goal weight. Today, I'm around 79 kilograms. When I think back to where I started, 98 kilograms, it's honestly hard to believe. One question I get asked all the time is, so, are you finished? Not quite. I'm still taking Mounjaro. At the moment, I'm injecting every 2 weeks. This is my maintenance program. It's something I've worked out with my doctor. For me, injecting fortnightly has continued to keep my weight down, while at the same time making the medication more affordable. Everyone's maintenance journey is a little different. Some may continue doing the weekly injections, and some may reduce the dosage. For me, we're taking the gradual approach. There's no rush. I've worked too hard over the last 2 years to undo all that progress. Eventually, I'll be stopping altogether. But when that happens, it'll be because my doctor and I decide the timing is right. Not because I'm trying to save money or rush the progress. Have I changed as a person? People often ask, do you feel different? Absolutely. Physically, yes. But mentally, even more. I don't avoid cameras anymore, and I don't hide behind others when photos are being taken. I don't wrap towels around myself before walking to swimming pools anymore, and I'm not spending hours worrying about what others think of my body. The biggest thing these medications gave me wasn't a smaller waist. It was the confidence I'd lost years ago. And that's probably something you can't put a price on. But after everything you've heard so far, the money, the side effects, the stomach pains, the constipation, the gym, the doctor's appointments, the blood test, Was it actually worth it? That's probably the biggest question of all. So, after all I've shared, was it actually worth it? For me, absolutely. And I'd do it all again, but not for the reason you'd think. People think that losing the weight is the biggest reward. It isn't. The biggest reward is everything that comes with it. I don't avoid the camera anymore. I don't hide behind people. I'm not afraid to go to the pool without a shirt on. That mental weight weighed heavier than the physical weight. But losing over 20 kilograms changed how I looked. But losing the shame changed how I live. That's something I never expected. Today, I have more energy. Walking is easier, traveling is easier, getting dressed is easier. I enjoy buying clothes again. I recover better after exercise. I genuinely feel healthier. I'm happier. And mentally, I'm in a much better place than I was 2 years ago. But that doesn't mean life has suddenly gotten better. I still have bad days. I still get stomach cramps. I still deal with the constipation. I'm still paying for the medication. I'm still injecting every 2 weeks. This journey isn't over. It's just entered a different phase. One thing I want people to really understand is Wegovy and Mounjaro aren't magic. They're tools. They don't suddenly make you love the gym. They don't automatically make you eat perfectly. And they don't fix your relationship with food. They're just another option. For the right person, and with the guidance of a good doctor, they can be incredibly effective. You still have to make good decisions. You still have to move your body. You still need to look after your health. The medication can help you, but it can't do everything for you. Sometimes I still think about that photo, the one that started all of this. If I could go back to that version of myself, I'd probably say this: be kinder to yourself. Because sometimes losing weight isn't just about eating less. Sometimes it's about asking for help. And for me, asking for help was the best decision that I ever made. So, where do I go from here? You're probably wondering, how much longer am I going to be on Mounjaro? And to be honest, I don't know. But for the next year, my goal is to be completely off it. Not because I think there's anything wrong with staying on it. That's completely up to you and your doctor to decide. But because I'd like to know that I could maintain a healthy lifestyle and my weight without medication. When that time comes, I'll do it slowly, I'll do it properly, and I'll do it with my doctor's support. I've worked too hard over the last 2 years to rush this final step. The reason I wanted to make this video wasn't to try and convince people to take these medications, and it wasn't to tell them not to. It was just to tell the truth. Because when I was researching Wegovy, I found plenty of videos telling me how amazing it was, and I found plenty of videos telling me it was terrible. Very few people simply shared the entire journey: the good, the bad, the embarrassing, the expensive, the emotional. That's the video I wish that I'd found. So hopefully, this video becomes that for someone else. If you're considering Wegovy or Mounjaro, my advice is simple. Don't make the decision because someone on YouTube told you to. Don't make the decision because someone on TikTok scared you. Speak to your doctor. Understand the costs, understand the possible side effects, understand the commitment. Then make the decision that's right for you. Because everyone's journey is different. This one was mine. When I started this journey, I was 98 kilograms. I wasn't happy. I lacked confidence. I hid from the camera. I hid behind everyone. And if I'm being honest, I hid from myself. Today, I've lost over 20 kilograms and I've reached my goal weight. I'm happier, I'm healthier, I'm stronger, and I'm more confident. But the biggest thing I've gained isn't a different body, it's a different outlook on life. because after 2 years, I've realised something. Looking after yourself isn't about trying to become somebody else. It's about giving yourself the chance to become the person you've always wanted to be. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments and I'll respond to you. And because I'm still on this journey, I'll make sure to make update videos as things change, whether that be with maintenance, costs, side effects, or anything else that may change along the way. If you'd like to follow that journey, I'd love to have you here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.